On blast.
And we are live. We're here once again. My name is Sheldon Alexander, and this is the Wrap It Up podcast. As always, you're on blast, Raps post-game show. As you can see, I am here discussing this Toronto Raptors game. The Raptors lose their first game of the season, 124-108. Again, the Raptors lose 124-108 to the Milwaukee Bucks. There's a lot to it. A lot that was a little bit different about this game. The thing is, you come into this game and you're the Toronto Raptors and you're riding high 6-0 against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks also coming into this game 6-0. And a very weird stat, both teams coming in 6-0. The first time in NBA history that two teams that are 6-0 have met in an NBA game. That, my friends, is a crazy stat. That also led us to a crazy game because there's lots going on here. Lots going on in this game. And the first thing that was super important in this game, again, if you're just tuning in, is we give people some time to join into the chat, join in on the Instagram Live. Again, my name is Sheldon Alexander, and thank you for joining me on the Wrap It Up podcast. If you're watching this live, either on Instagram, you're following me at Shell Alexander. Join us, say hello, give your comments on what's going on in this game right now, or if you're watching this on Twitter, at Shell Alexander. Multiple ways you can get at me. Let me know what you think about this Toronto Raptors game as Raptors lose their first game of the season. Again, a tough loss, 124. I still don't know because ESPN says it's 108. The broadcast said it was 109. Either way, Raptors got smashed. First loss of the season. Tough sledding for the Toronto Raptors as they go down to a Milwaukee Bucks team that looks so much different than the team that we saw last season. This Milwaukee Bucks team plays up and down. This Milwaukee Bucks team shoots a lot of threes. And I know that they didn't have Giannis, and that's going to be the biggest takeaway. But this team in general, under Coach Budenholzer, who, if you remember, Raptors fans, was the guy who was rumored to be the favorite in Toronto. The guy who Masai Ujiri wanted to bring in first, and it didn't really work out. Raptors lose their first game of the year, but no Kawhi Leonard, as the decision was made again, back-to-back. They don't want to play him in both games. Nick Nurse discussed the fact that he would rather play Kawhi, not have him fly out, not have him make the trip, and have him ready to go for the home game tomorrow night against another Eastern Conference quote-unquote power, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, you can argue and debate. I'd love to get people's opinions on what do you think about Kawhi Leonard not playing in back-to-backs early. I'd love to get people's opinion on what you think. And again, if you're on Instagram, shoot me some questions. Let me know what you think as we go along. We ask some questions here. And if you're on Twitter and you're watching this on Twitter, click the link, and that will get you into Periscope. And once you're in Periscope, you will see a different setup. And in that setup, you are able to join in, ask questions, see what's going on, ask me questions, talk about what's going on. I want to get your feedback, and we'll get to that. As the Raptors lose again, first game of the season, Raptors down 124-109, or 108, depending on where you check. Whatever, doesn't matter. The point remains the same. Let's go through what happened in this game. Because as mentioned, Kawhi Leonard wasn't the only person missing for the Toronto Raptors. And because he was resting, you don't really want to focus on that too much. Let's focus on the other side of this game, because I think this game came down to the Raptors bench, or lack thereof in this situation. Toronto Raptors were also, you look at their starting lineup, it was supposed to be JV, Pascal, Norm, Danny Green, and Kyle Lowry. A late change turned into Serge Ibaka into the starting lineup for Jonas Valanciunas. Now, the biggest thing to this game was no OG Anunoby, no Fred VanVleet. Now, we all know that the strength of the Toronto Raptors team last year, and even if you go back to the start of this season, you've seen it in flashes. You've seen it in bunches where the Raptors bench comes in and they're able to dominate certain games. They're able to take over certain games. This was a far cry from that. With no Fred, who is the leader of your second unit, but also DeLon Wright still doesn't look well. DeLon Wright doesn't look like he's at 100% yet, and that really hurts your second unit. Plus also having to take Norm out of the second unit and put him in the starting lineup. You're talking about a game here where you're going to ask for a lot from Kyle Lowry, from Danny Green, from your starters, but most especially Serge Ibaka and Pascal Siakam. So you look at that point and you figure, well, you're looking at the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks starting lineup they put out tonight because, again, they also didn't have Giannis. You have Brook Lopez, Ersan Ilyasova, Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and Malcolm Brogdon. Now, most of those guys we've seen on that team last year. You've seen that on that team in years past. Brook Lopez is obviously brand new, but you might think the JV matchup makes a lot more sense against Brook Lopez. But it doesn't really work out that way because Brook Lopez is playing more of the stretch five. And I know you got to see a glimpse of what the Bucks team will look like this year, but look at the three-point shooting and then add in Giannis playing in the post. This team is legit. The Bucks are a legit team. This is not the same Bucks team that we've seen in years past. This is not the same Bucks team that your Toronto Raptors beat in the playoffs a couple years ago. This is a very different Bucks team, and it starts with their style of play. And the biggest thing I think we should remember is the Bucks came in to the Bucks last season averaged 24.7 three-pointers per game last season. Again, 24.7 three-pointers a game last season. In the first half, they took 24 threes in tonight's game. That's just a great example of how different this team is and the looks that they're giving being totally different. They came in shooting just under 40 a night in the NBA this season. This season. Attempting, again, 40 three-pointers this season in comparison to last year where the exact same team shot just 24 threes. So you're talking about pace of play, style of play. That's completely different. And if you're paying attention to how the Raptors do their business, the Bucks are almost a carbon copy. It's the same style where you want to shoot either in the paint or you want to be shooting threes. You see that a lot with the Milwaukee Bucks, and it was another thing in the first half where they led at the half 62-53. But Milwaukee's 62 first half points, all of their 62 first half points came either from the restricted area, the three-point line, or the free throw line. Again, free throws, three-pointers, and shooting in the paint. That's where you want to go. And I know this gets attributed a lot to the Houston Rockets. You know, maybe even you might give some of that love to the Golden State Warriors for starting this trend of how things worked. Now in the NBA, as you're seeing a lot of teams adapt to this style of play where you either want layups, dunks, or threes, but the Milwaukee Bucks are fully equipped to do that. And the crazy part about what they did tonight, to me, was the fact that you look at their lineup, and no Giannis again, but the three-pointers wasn't just coming from one guy. It was a full arsenal. You had Ersan Ilyasova, 3 for 6 from three-point land. Chris Middleton, 4 for 9 from three-point land. Bledsoe, he added 2 threes. You go to their bench. Thon Maker coming off the bench. He hits 2 threes. Tony Snell comes off the bench. He's 3 for 3 from 3. Pat Connaughton comes off the bench. 2 for 4 from 3. Even your boy, Dante DiVincenzo. Webby, shouts to you. I know that's your guy. Dante DiVincenzo off the bench with 2 of 5 from 3. This team is just a completely different squad. Again, they attempted 45 threes in this game. And, you know, when you look at a team and you're talking about how you change the exact style of play, we talk about this a lot with the Toronto Raptors, right? And what they were trying to do in terms of building a system so that the system, not one player, is above the system. And if you look at how the Milwaukee Bucks played, you thought everything was Giannis, 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 Giannis. There's a lot of talk amongst Raptors fans heading into this game that, without Giannis, this is going to be an easy win, despite the fact that the Raptors did not have Kawhi Leonard. And it didn't really turn out that way. And it's because you're seeing a system implemented by the Milwaukee Bucks that is bigger than just having the one player. And I know if you're Raptors fans, you're going to be down because you lost the first game of the season. But let's be serious here. You weren't going to go 82-0. It wasn't going to happen. I mean, there are a lot of positives you can take from this game. Serge Ibaka, I still can't say anything bad about Serge Ibaka because he's balling. Another big night for Serge, 30 points on 12 of 21 shooting, 9 rebounds. Pascal Siakam, we're seeing the flourish of Pascal Siakam right before our eyes. 22 points tonight, 10 of 16 from the floor, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals. Siakam was all over the place because, as we always say, it's not just about the stat sheet with Pascal. He's all over the court. He's grabbing rebounds. He's bringing the ball up the floor. The only thing you kind of could pick at with his game was he was 0 for 4 from the three-point line. But again, without Kawhi Leonard, you're asking a lot more from everybody else. So I don't know how much you could actually ask from, how much more you could ask from a guy like Pascal, who's just now starting to come into his own in terms of an NBA player. I'm going to go to Instagram here, and I see a comment from the DDS Cap Boys. It says, total letdown. Kawhi should have played tonight. Bucks were on fire. Now, this will be a lot of talk in Raptorland, and people will wonder, people will complain, hey, if Kawhi's only here for 1 year, should we be giving him just nights off like that on the first or second half of back-to-backs? Are you okay with Kawhi Leonard resting early in the season? Personally, you got Kawhi Leonard because your aspirations are to win championships, right? Or at least get to the NBA Finals. Bottom line is you got Kawhi Leonard because you want to make a deep run in the playoffs. So I don't really have a problem with having Kawhi not play certain games or, take part in a back-to-back early on in the season. I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, what does this game against the Milwaukee Bucks mean? Also, I think once Giannis isn't playing, I can more so understand the decision of, you know what, if Giannis isn't playing, let's rest Kawhi. Because even if you're talking about, let's see how we match up against the Milwaukee Bucks down the line, you don't need to do that right now. And plus, with no Giannis, you're not really getting that matchup anyways if you played Kawhi. So I'm totally okay with them not playing him. Plus, I like the fact that they're holding him out and they would rather play him at home. I like that as a strategy. He doesn't have to take the extra flight. Plus, there's a road trip coming up at the end of this week. Hey, the whole thing about Kawhi is you want him to be ready for the playoffs. So instead of that, you know what? Chill out, relax. Remember, it's big picture. It's just one game. To me, there's so many other things to go on that you could point to in this game. Other situations that, tonight was the first game that the whole JV and Serge Ibaka, I think this was their second game. I'll give this the second game out of the 7 that the Raptors have played this year in which the tandem of Ibaka and JV didn't really live up to what they've been doing for the majority of the season. Serge Ibaka did his part. Again, 30 points, 9 rebounds. He did his thing. Shot a pretty solid percentage at 12 of 21, but JV struggled. JV finished 3 of 10, but I'm pretty sure he started 0 of 7 from the floor. And this was a game where, especially being shorthanded, you needed a game from JV. You needed JV to come in and really be an anchor scoring-wise for your second unit. And he did not provide that at all. You're not going to win many games if you're the Toronto Raptors and you're not getting bench production because that's just the strength of what this team is. And there's a certain point, I'm trying to find the numbers here, but in the first half, the Toronto Raptors bench started 2 for 20. 2 for 20. You're not going to win many games if your bench is going 2 for 20. Plus, in contrast, we mentioned what the Bucks bench was doing on the flip side. Those things, it's just not going to work if you're the Toronto Raptors. And it was a tough game, but at the same time, I'm happy to see the growing pains because you want to see what you have. You want to give chances to guys like Lorenzo Brown. He played heavy minutes tonight. His line doesn't look really good, but you're throwing him to the fire because you're going to need Lorenzo Brown, especially if you don't know how Fred and DeLon's injuries are going to play out this season. So you might really need Lorenzo Brown. So it's good to get him in tough minutes, and especially tough road minutes, because that crowd was rocking. And having Lorenzo Brown play serious minutes in a game like that, where you're going against Bulldogs like Eric Bledsoe and Brogdon in a tough environment like that, it can only hurt. I'm sorry, it can't hurt is what I meant to say. So that was a good sign for me to see Lorenzo Brown get minutes. Do you want to see him play better? Obviously. Malachi Richardson, same thing. I mean, you're a lot of pieces away from having Malachi Richardson minutes matter to this Toronto Raptors team. But again, it doesn't hurt to throw him to the Wolves and see what you got there, right? Because you just never know what can happen. The guys I'm really going to point to because I'm disappointed in, how they performed tonight in terms of a game where if you know Kawhi's not there, you know that OG's not there, you know that Fred's not there, everybody else has to step up a lot. Pascal, cool. You put in work. Serge, can't be mad at you. You put in work. Norm, I think, played solid minutes. Norm gave you solid minutes in the starting lineup. Norm wasn't trying to do too much as sometimes happens with Norman Powell. You see him kind of put his head down and he'll just try to barrel his way to the basket all the time or force shots. I felt like Norm did everything within the offense. He wasn't forcing shots. He was ready and ready to lock and load in the corner, knock down some open threes. Not mad at what Norman Powell did tonight. Danny Green, solid game. Danny Green's Danny Green. He's going to give you consistent defense. He's going to give you solid shooting, a couple rebounds here and there. Solid game. I'm not really mad at Danny Green. Kyle Lowry, I really hope. Now, as I'm recording this podcast, the media is probably waiting for Kyle Lowry. And if you look at Kyle Lowry's stat line, he shot 3 of 14. He was 0 for 9 from 3 for 9 points, right? Tough shooting night for Kyle Lowry. This coming off the fact that Kyle Lowry has been, he's coming off, I think it was 5 straight double-doubles in which he was shooting a great percentage, obviously, but the assists were the things, right? And you look at a game like tonight where there's no Kawhi, and so you need more scoring. Kyle Lowry, you could tell, made a point early on to get everyone involved. He finished with 15 assists, which I think was a marvelous job, a dope job by Kyle Lowry because he's getting everyone else involved. He knows that you need more scoring, but Serge is going to need a little help. Pascal's going to need a little help. Danny Green and Norm, you're going to make their life easier by setting them up. And I think you saw that from Kyle. I'm going to actually give Kyle Lowry a pass on his shooting night. He had a tough night for sure. No doubt. 0 for 9 from 3 is not good at all. But these are tough games for Kyle Lowry where you're resting Kawhi Leonard, and so there's going to be so much more pressure on Kyle Lowry to deliver at a higher clip than he normally does. And so, to me, it's kind of unfair to then point at him if he has an off shooting night on the first night of a back-to-back because he's going to have to go out tomorrow night and try to guard who? Ben Simmons? Or no, the matchups will probably be a little different, but the point is there's another big boy matchup waiting for Kyle Lowry tomorrow night. And, what you got from him tonight, poor shooting effort, but it's okay. The biggest thing I'm hoping for that doesn't happen, I'm really hoping that the media doesn't go at Kyle Lowry and we get the salty Kyle Lowry tonight. Because to me, it's unfair, right? It's a tough matchup for Kyle. The way that the Bucks play, especially as mentioned, they're shooting a whole lot more threes, but also the pace of play is up. So now if you're Kyle Lowry and you're having to create every single shot over and over again for the rest of your teammates because you're trying to get more baskets without Kawhi, you also have to guard up on D. And these guys are playing at such a faster pace. That's a lot on Kyle Lowry. That's a lot to ask this guy to do. And then add in the fact that his backup is Lorenzo Brown. And that's not a knock on Lorenzo Brown. It's just real spit. Lorenzo Brown is, he's just now getting acclimated to the NBA, right? You don't know what you're going to get from Lorenzo Brown yet. We saw him give good minutes in other games, but you can't really count on what Lorenzo Brown is going to give you just yet. We're not there yet, right? I'm going to go into the comments here, and I'm in Periscope. And Mike Strikes Back says, is this the Eastern Conference Finals preview? That's a good question, Mike. And we also have the same question from, I don't know if that's Wale Brelf. I don't know what that says, but something like that. 2 people asking if this is a Eastern Conference Finals preview. I mean, that's super interesting because at the end of the day, so much talk about the Boston Celtics coming into this season, so much talk about, the Philadelphia 76ers, obviously, coming into this season. And so the Raptors, a lot of people thought the Raptors kind of fell under the radar. But if the Raptors were under the radar heading into this season, then the Milwaukee Bucks were definitely coming under the radar this season. And you didn't know how they were going to react. Everyone's always been expecting year after year. I think Foots was talking about that on one of our recent podcasts about how every year we're getting told this could be the Giannis MVP year, right? We've heard that maybe for the past 2 or 3 years at least. And so you're hearing that again this year. But I think the thing that people missed was the fact that they have a new coach, and Mike Budenholzer, I mean, say what you want about those Atlanta Hawks teams, but those teams were solid, consistent, 50-win teams, right, that Mike Budenholzer led, and they had a good, solid offense. Obviously, he's a guy coming from the Spurs with that pedigree, so he added legitimacy to an Atlanta Hawks franchise that didn't really have it. He's gone now. You're kind of seeing they're struggling this year, but the point is, people kind of undervalued what Mike Budenholzer would bring to this Bucks team, because a lot of the talk when you saw them play last year was about how they have good players, but it doesn't seem to be working for one reason or another. And now Budenholzer comes in, and you're seeing it now. And trust me, I'm more impressed by this Milwaukee Bucks team, how they looked without Giannis, because I feel like you know what you're going to get from Giannis. That's a little bit of everything, right? But the rest of these guys, Malcolm Brogdon was playing with so much more confidence. Eric Bledsoe, when the offenses consists of a lot more of just, here's the ball, try to break down your man, ISO, one-on-one, maybe a pick and roll, right? Like, we're seeing so much more to the offense that it gets easier buckets. Plus, these are guys that play defense. That team is super long, super crazy. That team will get buckets just off their defense. So it's a really solid team. But if I were to tell you last year that last year's Milwaukee Bucks would be in a game without Giannis, and then their second best player, Chris Middleton, would shoot 4 of 11, you'd probably assume that that's an L for the Bucks, right? And instead, it's a blowout victory against the Raptors. And another guy to give a lot of credit to is Ersan Ilyasova. He started in place of Giannis, and he really set the tone early. He was banging in shots early, finished 8 of 12, 19 points, 10 rebounds. Solid. I mean, what more can you really expect from a guy filling in for Giannis? But he did a great job. And I'm really interested to see, and I urge Raptor fans, if you catch a Milwaukee Bucks game, I'm pretty sure they play the Celtics on Thursday. That's what they're talking about during the broadcast, right? This Bucks team, especially if Giannis is back, I'm going to be so interested to watch them play, because Giannis is a guy that's going to be doing a lot of the paint work. And now, the way that their team is set up, it's just motion on the perimeter and guys just willing and able to shoot threes. That's a scary team. Going forward, I mean, after watching the start that this team's gotten off to, after watching them play without Giannis, it's not far-fetched at all to think that this Milwaukee Bucks team could be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, again, you're talking about a team that in most series, Giannis is going to be the best player in that series. So it's not far-fetched at all to think that. And, of course, you know my stance on where the Toronto Raptors will be if they have a healthy Kawhi Leonard. I definitely think that team can be in the NBA Finals. In the NBA Finals. So definitely, Bucks-Raptors could be a sneaky Eastern Conference Finals preview, because this team looks really good. I'm looking forward to see how the Bucks do against the Boston Celtics on Thursday night. But let's go back to the Raptors for a bit, because there are a lot of things here that, you know, we should talk about, including your Toronto Raptors, just because, you know, they played well. I'm not really mad at, like, you knew they were going to lose. They're going to lose a game. They weren't going to go 82-0. So that's the first thing, Raptors fans. Chill out. A back-to-back against Milwaukee and the Sixers, that's a tough back-to-back, right? If you came out of that with a split, you take that, right? So you lose the front end of the back-to-back. You lose a game without Kawhi Leonard, and you should be okay with that. But again, the bigger thing to focus on is you really need Fred. You really need DeLon to get healthy. I know DeLon played, but DeLon still doesn't look right. DeLon, again, 13 minutes, he was 1 of 5 for 4 points. That's not really going to cut it, especially without Fred. You need more from DeLon Wright. I felt that Lorenzo Brown was more taking the lead of the second unit, where if you have DeLon Wright, he's supposed to be that guy, especially if Fred's not there. So that tells me maybe he's still working his way back from injury. So hopefully DeLon gets right soon. Pardon the pun. I didn't mean to do that. That was terrible. That's for my guy John that I do what's the other podcast we do on the challenge? What's it called? You Killed It. Wow. Do too many podcasts nowadays. I can't even remember the names of them all. But yeah, it's just an interesting twist, right? Because the way that the Raptors bench looked, it tells you just how important the whole operation is. And a lot of the focus is going to be that Kawhi Leonard didn't play tonight. But I'm telling you, the bigger issue was that Fred VanVleet didn't play, OG didn't play, which then, you know, you're taking guys and you have to move them up a peg, meaning Norman Powell. You're taking him from your second unit, moving him into the starting lineup. And now you're forcing guys like you need Malachi Richardson. You need Lorenzo Brown to play well. And that just didn't happen. And then to double down on that, CJ Miles. What happened to CJ Miles? I don't know what's going on. CJ Miles has struggled all season long. I think CJ Miles had one good game this year. I mean, the game against Dallas, he shot 4-6 from the floor. But it's not even the fact so much of numbers from CJ Miles. When you're watching the game and you see the open looks that this guy's getting, like, these are, like, the reason why you're here is to hit threes. Now, when you're missing wide open threes, that's a big problem. Because the thing is, CJ Miles, if you're not hitting threes, then, you know, you're not in the game for your defensive play. You're not in the game for, you know, your driving to the basket or your playmaking. You're in the game to knock down threes. So if you're not knocking down threes, and tonight he was 1 of 7 from three-point land, and a lot of those were good looks. A lot of those were Kyle Lowry setting him up, getting him a good look. So Raptors definitely need more from CJ Miles if there is a hope for them to, you know, if he is going to be a key contributor to this team going forward. Now, the other thing that I found super interesting is I'm watching Kyle Lowry talk right now, and I'm just I'll wait for and hope for some of the quotes to come across Twitter here, and I'll read them out for you as they come across my Twitter screen. But the other thing, too, that we need to talk about is Pascal Siakam. Now, Beals and Foots, from the start of this season on this podcast, those guys have been telling you about, and even Bellamo. I'll give Bellamo a lot of credit, too. Everyone has been pointing it to the fact that Pascal Siakam, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the coming out party of Pascal Siakam. I cannot believe just the confidence that this guy has. Night in, night out, I'm seeing just a little something different from his game that's making me think, wow, like, where did that come from, right? In the middle of that game, I tweeted out, seriously, I don't know who gassed Pascal Siakam this offseason, but give that person a raise. His game, the fact that, like, how many guys, when you watch all of the NBA, right? I feel like Draymond became the poster boy for this, but the whole your forward grabs the rebound and he's automatically leading the fast break. If you have that, the weapon that gives your team, the weapon that, or how much that helps a guy like Kyle Lowry, who on a night like tonight, when you're down a point guard, you need a little bit of a rest. So if you can cheat a little bit, and I use that as a reference to, you know, what we talked about last year where LeBron would kind of cheat while he's on the floor. But if you're Kyle Lowry and you're playing these heavy minutes, every once in a while, it helps you so much if a guy like Siakam can bring the ball up for you. If a guy like Siakam can get the offense going. He's doing that at like 6'9", 6'10". That is crazy, right? As this guy continues to improve, we saw a lot more of his game tonight in terms of being able to get the ball, in terms of being able to create plays, not only for himself, but for his teammates as well. And it's not assist numbers. Sometimes it's a hockey pass and making the hockey assist, right? And making the extra pass to get to the assist. But 10 of 16 for 22 points. Him and Kyle are really starting to get that, you know, to get that continuity going. That's not the word I'm looking for. Him and Kyle are starting to really get, you know, they're starting to look more comfortable together, right? Kyle's driving to the basket and he's dropping it off for Pascal. He's kind of knowing, you know, I feel that point guard big man relationship, it takes you a while for the guard to kind of know here's how, or here's where I can give the big guy the ball and he can make a move and get buckets, right? Because it's going to be different for Kyle Lowry, where you can give Pascal the ball, or where you can give Serge the ball, or where you can give JV the ball, right? And I feel like the more and more time that goes on, we're seeing like Pascal's game really blow up and expand and really turn into something that I didn't know that we were getting this season. maybe somewhere down the line, might have thought it was coming maybe 2 years from now, but where this kid is at right now, it's kind of scary because you wonder just how this all flows, right? How this is all going to work this season. But another big night from Pascal Siakam. And if I'm going to pick out, normally on the podcast, we'll pick out who was the king of the court or the MVP of the night. And we normally do it from a Raptor standpoint, right? And, obviously I think if I was going to hand it out from the Bucks standpoint, I'm going to go with Malcolm Brogdon. I just think he did a great job of controlling the game. He had a great impact on the game. It wasn't just all about scoring, but it just seemed like every time the Raptors were getting kind of close, he was there to make a play, whether it was an assist or a swing pass or, a steal or something like that. But if you're looking at the Toronto Raptors, Serge Ibaka is ballin'. I don't know where this came from. I don't know how long this is going to last. But let's just enjoy the ride. Because if you're seeing 30 and 9 from Serge Ibaka, and I mean, there are times where he was taking shots. He started off, I want to say 7 for 7 in this game, right? And then there was a little blip where Serge went 0 for his next 5 after starting 7 for 7. But you got to let that slide. You really got to let that slide because maybe he was a little bit tired. Maybe he needed a little extra rest because of the heavy load in minutes that he was being asked to carry, because when the Raps went to JV just didn't have it. And I don't know if it was a straight matchup because they tried to, if Brook Lopez is starting, even when Brook Lopez was in the game, Brook Lopez is playing on the perimeter more so than he's playing in the post. So I don't know if that's a real good matchup for Jonas Valanciunas. Once you remove Brook Lopez from the equation, JV can't play with Henson. Not really. That's not a good matchup. That's not a matchup you want. If Henson's in the game, if Thon Maker's in the game and they're going really small, JV can't play in that system. It's just not going to work. And we saw that tonight where JV was 3 for 10 for 10 points, 3 rebounds. He really struggled. He really, really struggled. And on a night like tonight where your bench is depleted, you kind of hope that Jonas Valanciunas would step up and really be the anchor of that second unit. You want to be able to throw him the ball down low and let him get you buckets. And that just didn't happen tonight. I don't know. But I'm reading comments in here, and I see someone say it's a GoDaddy curse, which we talked about before. But if you go back each and every year, the GoDaddy curse, we've seen it to JV had a pretty bad year when he did the GoDaddy stuff. Norm and that annoying commercial where he was singing the song. Norm struggled on his GoDaddy year. And this year it's CJ's PJs. And CJ, yeah, I don't know. They might be kicking him back to the PJs if he keeps up this poor shooting, because it's not good. It's not good from CJ Miles right now. I know who this is, but I'm not going to give them the credit of saying their name. Says it's nah, bro, not continuity. Thank you. I corrected myself. Also says Serge sucks. I mean, I think those are just troll comments, and I will leave that person as only being named as a troll. Certain people might know who I'm talking about, but let's move on. More comments here. TM416 says, I thought our 4-5 this year should have been Pascal and Serge. Now, there's been a lot of talk this year about this, right? How are the Raptors going to do this each and every game? Are you going to be playing the matchup game? Which, again, at the very start, when the broadcast announced who was going to be starting for the Toronto Raptors, they said that it was going to be Jonas Valanciunas in the starting lineup instead of Serge Ibaka. Then as the game started, you heard, I think it was Jack or Matt Devlin, I'm not sure which one it was, but one of them said, wait a second, it looks like Serge is actually coming out and starting tonight. So I don't know when that change actually came, but we've talked about it before, that the matchup of Pascal and Serge might be the actual, starting lineup that will get the majority of the starts this year. And we saw that tonight. Those guys can play well together. They can feed off each other. It's a tough matchup for other front courts to match up with, because not only is Serge, when Serge is OKC Serge, he's a load, right? Like he's tough to handle. And you match him up with Pascal, Mr. Do It Everything right now. There's very few front lines that'll be able to match up with that. So I like Serge and Pascal as a starting front court, but I also give Nick Nurse a lot of credit because I like his flexibility, right? I like the fact that he's able to go into each game and just adjust. He's not stuck in his ways of, well, this is going well, I got to stick with that. So as I continue, I see homemade Congolese cooking. All right, Serge Ibaka, yes, doing work. That's a shout out to Serge Ibaka. Someone else says, I thought the GoDaddy curse was transferred to Aisha Curry, but alas, not to be. Here's an interesting question, right? And I actually did talk about this earlier with a couple of friends at work. I'm trying to read the name, but I think it says Nanobot. Says, are you worried about Kyle's mileage this year with so many injuries to our backup PGs? Yes, I'm definitely worried about that. I'm also worried about the fact that early on this season, we're so focused on Kawhi Leonard playing on back-to-backs. There's been no mention of Kyle Lowry. And if you remember back to last year, one of the big things with Dwayne Casey, and I guess from Masai top down, one of the things was they wanted to make sure that Kyle Lowry was healthy heading into the playoffs. And so they managed his minutes a lot. They made sure that he wasn't playing heavy minutes. The bench actually took care of a lot of that too, because the way that DeLon and Freddie were playing last year made it easy to take it easy on Kyle Lowry's minutes last year. Obviously, with the injuries early on, Kyle's going to have to carry a lot more of the point guard duties. And when you take away Kawhi Leonard, which you have in 2 of the 7 games they've played this year, that's also putting a lot more mileage on Kyle Lowry. But it's a long season. So the hope is that somewhere along the way, they'll be able to cheat some games with Kyle Lowry in the same way that they're doing with Kawhi Leonard now, right? Kyle Lowry, I think, too, you're playing off the fact that he came into this season with a lot to prove. Kyle Lowry hears the whispers. He hears what everyone was saying this offseason, everyone being worried about how he would play this year without DeMar DeRozan. He heard the whispers, and he came out with something to prove this year. And I think you're kind of riding with that early momentum, and Kyle's looked great. But yes, I do worry about his minutes. You do hope that Freddie comes back, not only to give Kyle Lowry a bit of a rest, but you need Fred VanVleet, right? Like, Fred VanVleet is a key part to this Toronto Raptors team, because at the end of the day, he's an extra playmaker, right? At the end of the day, the more playmakers that you have on your team, the more successful you'll be, right? And so you saw it tonight against if you use Milwaukee as an example, they're very successful because they have Brogdon and Bledsoe in their backcourt. They start, but if you compare that to, you get a lot of minutes of Kyle Lowry in the backcourt with Freddie, and you see how successful that is for the Toronto Raptors playing with 2 point guards, because you get, another guy who can drive and kick, another guy who can create plays, and that's so important for this Toronto Raptors team. So not only do they need Freddie back, but DeLon's got to get healthy. They need more from DeLon Wright, because DeLon Wright is a key part to this team with Fred VanVleet. Without Fred VanVleet, yeah, you need DeLon Wright. So hopefully those 2 guys get healthy. Hopefully they can help, because Lorenzo Brown is not there yet. You're seeing that you can get minutes from him, but you can't be relying on him as much as you rely on Freddie and DeLon. You saw that tonight's game, right? It seemed like the moment was a little too big for Lorenzo Brown at times. He couldn't really hang with Brogdon or Bledsoe, but again, you expect that. You're going to see growing pains, right? It's not going to come that easy for a guy like Lorenzo Brown right away. So, yes, I am worried about Kyle Lowry's minutes, but, hey, it's early in the season, and I trust in Nick Nurse, obviously. Nick Nurse knows what he's doing. I'm sure as early on as he's easing Kawhi in, he probably has talked to Kyle about the fact that, hey, as we ease Kawhi in, you're going to play a lot more minutes, but there's going to be a stretch during this season where Kyle Lowry's the one resting on the second night of back-to-backs. I'm confident in that fact, and because they know, much like how important it is to have Kawhi Leonard if you want to make a deep run in the playoffs. You definitely need Kyle Lowry if you're going to make a deep run in the playoffs. So same thing there. So thank you for that question. Continuing with more questions. I know Kyle's assists are up. It's a real change in his game. Freddie is also a good defender. That's a very good point as well. This person says, you're being very charitable to Lorenzo. I hope he's got more to give, but he looks out of it. Yeah, I mean, Lorenzo Brown did not have a good game. As mentioned, the Raptors lost this game because of their bench. The numbers weren't even close. Milwaukee's bench just dominated this game, and this was one of those games where you would see the classic Kyle Lowry kind of control the tempo, try to keep it close. You know, his scoring numbers wouldn't be there until the end. You know, he's kind of trying to control the game, and then hopefully at the end, if the game's close, he would then try to close out as Kyle Lowry. We've seen him do time after time, but the Bucks are just a different animal this season. They really are. And we saw a lot of the numbers tonight of just what this Bucks team was doing, and it was crazy, right? It was really, really crazy. The Raptors were out of it. I want to say they were down, 11 at half, 9 at half? Things weren't close at all. And the third quarter, that lead got extended to 15, and then it was just jammed done. But my overall message, Raptor fans, is chill out, relax. It's okay. It's the first loss of the season. Kawhi Leonard didn't play. And also, as the strength of your team is the depth, right now you missed 3 regulars. You're missing, if Kawhi Leonard is your best player, Fred VanVleet is probably your, 4th or 5th best player? You know what I mean? Like, you're missing key pieces to your team. And in fact, you haven't even had your full team at any point of this season so far. And you're still 6-1. So, relax. It's okay. We're going to have a healthy, fresh Kawhi Leonard tomorrow night against the Sixers. And that's a game I'm excited to see. I kind of wondered, how Nick Nurse would run the minutes, because in the third quarter or at the start of the fourth, the game kind of seemed to be getting out of hand. And you thought, is it time to pull the starters, knowing that you have another game tomorrow night? The starters stayed in a little longer, and then the game really got out of hand before he went to the bench. But Kyle Lowry still played 36 minutes tonight. That's a lot of minutes for Kyle Lowry. And so hopefully, the hope is at home against the Sixers, a fully rested Kawhi. That's when you need the MVP Kawhi tomorrow night against the Sixers, because it's a big matchup. The Sixers also will be playing on the second night of a back-to-back, as they defeated the Atlanta Hawks tonight, 113-92. And as I bring up that box score, it's the Atlanta Hawks, so they're starting Vince Carter in 2018. So that just tells you where that franchise is right now in 2018. But as I open up that box score, we see that Ben Simmons finished with 21 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. Joel Embiid, slow night, 10 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. But again, it's the Atlanta Hawks. And the Sixers are a young team. So I don't doubt for a second that the Sixers were looking ahead to the Raptors matchup and kind of bypassing the Atlanta Hawks, because, again, they're the Atlanta Hawks. But tomorrow night's matchup, I'm hyped. I'm looking forward to that matchup. Kawhi Leonard will be well rested. Hopefully there's enough time for Kyle Lowry and Serge to recover, because those guys had to go hard tonight to even keep this game close for 3 quarters. So hopefully there's enough time for those guys to get back into it, because the ACC, I guess what's Scotiabank Arena now? The Scosh? What are we calling it? Let me know in the chat. What are we calling it now? The Scosh? I don't know. But the Scosh, the ACC, whatever we're calling it, will be rocking, or should be rocking. Hopefully the real fans aren't too priced out. But the hope is that the ACC is rocking for a big-time matchup against the Sixers. And if you remember, Raptors fans, last season, Kyle Lowry and Ben Simmons exchanged some words. Things got a little heated in that matchup, where somebody fouled somebody, there's a little chatter back and forth, and it appeared as if Ben Simmons was gesturing to Kyle Lowry to meet him in the back. And Kyle Lowry in Philly, being a Philly guy, there's 0% chance Kyle Lowry was backing down from that. So Kyle said, yeah, let's go. Now, obviously nothing happened, but I would assume that Mr. Kyle Lowry and Mr. Ben Simmons are both looking forward to this matchup. And again, not Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has a way of having certain games circled on his calendar. And I could see this game being a thing where a Raptors fan base going at Joel Embiid, him trying to play up to the crowd. You know, it could be a lot of fun. It'll be a big-time matchup. But also, I'll say this. Kawhi Leonard's got a ball out tomorrow, right? Like, you're sitting at home. You know that the team was playing shorthanded because you're obviously resting, working your way back. And I'm not knocking Kawhi Leonard for sitting out because he only played 9 games last year. So it's going to take him a while to get back to being 100%. But I'm saying if he's sitting at home or in wherever he's at, watching the Raptors lose that game, get blown out, you're watching Serge ball, you're watching Kyle try to do a little bit of everything. Your mentality going into the second night of the back-to-back, knowing that you're fresh while the rest of your teammates were out there battling, it's got to be kill, kill, kill if you're Kawhi Leonard tomorrow. Covington, you're getting the business. Whoever else wants some, the whole clip's getting emptied. You need a 30-plus point performance from Kawhi Leonard. That's where you need the MVP Kawhi Leonard to show up, is in that game tomorrow night. Also, in the chat I'm seeing here, I hope OG is back tomorrow. I don't know what's going on with OG. He was out with personal issues again. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully OG is back in the lineup. Because, well, first off, on a personal note, I hope everything's okay with OG and whatever's going on off the court. I hope things are being taken care of and he's okay, first and foremost. But as we shift back to basketball, of course, the Raptors could use him back in the lineup, and hopefully he's okay for tomorrow. Same with Freddie. I understand why, like, if Fred is struggling to get back to 100%, why play him both games in a back-to-back? So hopefully if Freddie took tonight off, he's okay to go tomorrow because, again, big-time matchup against the Sixers. So as we wrap up here, on the Wrap It Up podcast, I didn't mean to do that. I call myself out whenever I say stupid cliches because I don't mean to do that. I really don't. So I call myself out when I say dumbass cliches or stupid puns like that. But again, thanks everyone for joining me on Instagram Live. Shout out to all the people there. I see you, Bellamo. I see you, Lil Bev. I see you too. Chrissy, hello. Mac, D-Mac, I see you too. Shout out to all the people in the Instagram. Thanks for all your questions. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to everyone in the chat, whether you were on Twitter or you were in Periscope. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate it. I just kind of winged it tonight. You know, we've been doing this Wrap It Up podcast now for the start of the season. Things have been going really well. Shout out to everyone who has liked and subscribed on iTunes or on SoundCloud. You can do that if you just search On Blast Podcast. You can find that there. Listen to this on your commute after each and every game, on the way home on your way to work the next morning. This turns into a podcast. You can find that there. Again, search On Blast Podcast on SoundCloud, on Google Play, or on iTunes. Or you can find this Wrap It Up podcast on YouTube. And I just want to give a special shout out to all the listeners on YouTube, or all the viewers on YouTube. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all the feedback, positive and negative. Trust me, I really do, because I'm not going at this as if I know what I'm doing. I'm winging it and picking it up as we go along. So totally appreciate you being along for the ride with me. We try to get better. We try to improve. We just try to have a space for Raptors fans to talk ball after each and every game. That's the goal. So thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Sheldon Alexander, and you can find this podcast. You can join us live and ask questions and join in after each and every Raptor game on Twitter at Shell Alexander. Tonight I put it up on Instagram Live. Maybe we'll do that again tomorrow, just as another way to give people another way to interact with us as we go along. But again, join me after each and every Raptor game at Shell Alexander Live. as mentioned, that gets turned into a podcast, which you can find everywhere you get your podcast: SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, under On Blast Podcast, and again on YouTube. Shout out to that. The last video we did, momentum's really building. We're almost at we're doing numbers. Numbers are doing okay. I'll just say that, and hopefully they continue. Hopefully you didn't get tired of hearing my voice. I'm about to lose my voice. Didn't realize I was talking for that long, but that's what Raptors basketball does. Gets me hyped. So again, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Tomorrow, who's lined up? I got 2 people lined up to join me tomorrow, so that'll be cool. Right back at it again. I'll try to bounce back tomorrow. Hopefully my voice is better and back to normal. And hopefully the Raptors bounce back as well, as again, they fall, losing their first game of the season. Let's see if they've actually... Yep, the final score is 124-109. The Raptors fall to the Milwaukee Bucks as the Bucks improve to 7-0. The Raptors fall to 6-1, and hopefully they can bounce back tomorrow with Kawhi Leonard back in the lineup. And hopefully you will tune in again to join me, Sheldon Alexander, because as a wise man once said, I really did used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is the Wrap It Up On Blast Raps post-game show. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.